Dr. Mason West.
Welcome in, Bears fans, to this episode of Bear Bones. As always, I am Dr. Mason West. So today, it's going to be a kind of a short recap of what happened at camp today. I got to be there live. The only time I'll get to go live for the season because it's so hard, one, to just get tickets, but also two, because can't really go during the week. So, you're limited to weekends. There's not that many weekend days. But yeah, it was a really good time. She got to go with my mom. It was fun. That was her first time at training camp, and so that was pretty cool. And ran into friend of the podcast, Nicholas Moriano. Right, I got my start doing this whole thing with Nick and Will DeWitt over at Chicago Audible. So it was super fun to catch up with him, chat about what we saw while we were watching practice. It was a good time. Overall, definitely an interesting practice. So a couple of notes just to take it right off the top here. And if you're listening live and have any questions about anything specific, feel free to throw that in. I'll try to answer the best I can. But like I said, this will be a kind of a short one, just give you guys an idea of what I saw while I was there. So Jonah Jackson was back at camp at practice today, but if it was a bit brief. So he actually left. He limped back to the building a little early. So he got subbed out after a bit of time. Tight end Jordan Murray made a couple fun, cool plays and some one-on-ones really, really early, but he actually left practice early as well. Brian Bates got first-team reps at right guard with Jonah Jackson out. Also, who was it? Miles Boykin went down with a bit of an injury. He ended up came up a little limpy at one point in practice as well, so a little funky there. But basically, we're just going to go through some of the other things that I saw overall. There were some really cool one-on-one plays, right? They had a couple of sessions of red zone, which was great to see. That was probably the most exciting portion of practice, just because I was also right up in front of us, who happened to be in the end zone view. Some really good battles in there. Obviously, Jalen Johnson's still out, so you got to see Tyreek Stevenson, Nashawn Wright, Kyler Gordon, just to name a few. Probably the highlight of the day was actually a one-on-one between Kyler Gordon and Romadunze. So Gordon had some really great press coverage, jammed him at the line. At first, you're like, oh man, what's this rep going to look like? Rome's able to get into the end zone, create a little bit of space. Ball was thrown, high pointed by Rome. Came down in bounds, even though Gordon tried pushing him out, and touchdown scored. So that was probably the highlight of the day, at least in terms of just like a play that was just cool to see, like the battle that was going on there. It was overall, the tempo was interesting. The Bears have Family Fest tomorrow, so you could tell, there's a couple of run plays, but nothing super substantial in the run game that was there. One of the few plays that were called. I mean, DeAndre Swift got absolutely blown up, and I believe that was by Kyler Gordon in 11-on-11s. Something that was different this year that I noticed was there was a lot more team periods. Yeah, they were broken up. There's probably three separate team periods that went on 11-on-11 wise, but more than in previous training camps for the Bears that I've been to. So that was fun. Throughout the entire time, like I said, there was not a lot of run game, and there was up and down offense for the offense. So first team offense had some rough periods near the end of practice when they started near midfield. Sweat had a sack followed by a play that should have been a sack by Josh Blackwell. There's a lot of pressure right now from Dennis Allen. Actually, there was a play in the third 11-on-11 where, they brought the house. Jaquan Brisker came up, Kevin Byard came up. Caleb was able to avoid pressure. It's hard to say for sure if that would have been a sack or not. I don't believe it would have been. I believe that there was enough space and that there was enough tempo going on that Caleb did, in fact, he was able to roll out to the right, got the ball off, and found Cole Kmet for a touchdown. So that's probably, in my opinion, Caleb's highlight, just being able to take that pressure. But that's kind of the good and the bad when it comes to the Dennis Allen defense. There was also, on that note, a lot of flags that were thrown in the one-on-ones, actually, in that red zone period. Some handsiness from multiple DBs. But that's what just Dennis Allen wants, right? He wants press corners. He wants individuals that are going to get up and allow, hopefully, the pass rush to get there. And as we know, there's the pass rush is a little questionable. But also he's going to bring pressure. It's a very different. It's essentially the same defense as what Eberflus was running, but it couldn't also be more different because Eberflus was much more sit back, right? You rush 4, and don't allow explosive plays. You're allowing the chunks. The idea here is that you're not trying to allow anything, but you're potentially going to allow something over the top, like you did in this scenario with the Cole Kmet touchdown. Darnell Wright had kind of a rough practice, which is good because Montez Sweat got the better of him a couple of times. There were some false starts as well. So, the good and the bad. You want to see more out of Darnell Wright. He's going into year 3. You're hoping that he makes a bit of a jump. You kind of give him the benefit of the doubt a little bit the last couple of years. Year 1 was a rookie. You looked for year 2 to be a bigger jump than there was, but at the same time, I mean, he's playing next to a rotating cast of characters last year, right? The Nate Davis saga. Tevin Jenkins was getting hurt over at left guard. Pryor was supposed to be guard, but then there was some left tackle injuries. So now Pryor's playing left tackle at times. And so it's hard to be a good to dominant right tackle when that's happening. But now, at some point, the excuses do have to end. I mean, even today, obviously, Jonah Jackson did leave, so that's tough. You have Ryan Bates out there. And so that does matter, but you still got to win your one-on-ones. Now you pay Montez Sweat too. You're hoping for a big year for Montez. He had a bit of a down year last year after coming onto the scene. I mean, there's that stat, right? He led the Commanders and the Bears at one point in the same season with sacks. That's not saying much because both teams really didn't put a lot of pressure in that year. But last year he was battling injuries a lot. So you're hoping to see that shifts. One of the bigger pieces of news, at least in my opinion, Karan Amagaji didn't practice at all with a leg injury. Now, that being said, you potentially would expect there to be a relatively even split at tackle. But, I mean, Ozzie Trapillo, as far as I saw, took every single snap at the ones. That it may mean nothing. Maybe for tomorrow for Family Fest, Braxton Jones comes out and plays every single snap at the ones. But it didn't seem like that was the case. If anything, it was more Braxton Jones and Theo Benedict was the ones rotating now almost in that 2-3 spot for the Bears, and it was Ozzie's spot today. And I didn't necessarily see anything too worrisome. More of the pressure came from, if anything, unfortunately, the Darnell Wright side. No pun intended there. So, I mean, Ozzie was definitely holding his own. I mean, he's just also a massive individual. So it's crazy. If there were some of the highlights of the day, it would probably be a little bit of Luther Burden. He had a fun couple catches, but really, in my opinion, it was the Colston Loveland show. He opened, for example, the third 11-on-11 session after a couple of other great plays, but he opened the third 11-on-11 session with a score, right? And he was scoring on linebackers, corners. He was high pointing the ball. He was catching it, and protecting against his body in traffic. He was doing a little bit of everything. And it's really exciting. I mean, you're not trying to create hyperbole or anything, but it's the Greg Olsen again kind of thing. I mean, that's the last time that at least I felt vibes anything like this when it came to the tight end position. I mean, you go back to the Adam Shaheen era where, I mean, yeah, there was a play or two where you were kind of excited about what you saw. But as a whole, I mean, it just was always awkward with Adam Shaheen. It was always about potential more than anything. You didn't truly, at least not consistently, there'd be one play every training camp. And, he always also fell weird. I mean, you can always tell, my role as a physical therapist, there's an art and a grace to how you fall and how you absorb contact. And Adam Shaheen, it was just a car without any shock absorbers. And I think that's one of the reasons why he just kept getting hurt. Plus his weight addition and all that, the Chipotle method, as I remember him saying, was not the most natural. So Colston Loveland just looks the part. He plays the part. Like I said, he's able to do it against linebackers, against safeties, against corners. He did all over the field today. Different kinds of catches as well. Very natural catcher too. I mean, you can kind of tell when someone has to fight it. So, that was really exciting. When it comes to Caleb, right? I mean, that's one of the biggest things. What is Caleb Williams doing? There were some rough parts, right? There was a couple times where he could have gotten the ball out faster. And even if it was a throwaway, even if it was, into some tighter coverage, And there was also some times where the offensive line did not do him any favors, right? Where he is now rolling out, one in particular, I remember he pressure immediately off his right side. He is in there, he spins out to the left, and then he's getting chased down and has to heave a ball up, and it's overthrown over DJ Moore's head. And it was, if the safety was in a little better position, it could have been an interception. So you have a play like that. There was a fumble in there, just not a great snap, but then also like he could, not the best handled ball either. And then the next play, he rolls out to the right and zips a ball to Rome Odunze for a touchdown, right? Just kind of that, what we saw last year where he's able to, kind of split jump and a little bit of a sidearm to it. So it was a mixed bag, but I think when you're trying to, if you look at it within the day, you're not looking at it right. If you're looking at it one day to the next, when it comes to Caleb Williams, you're not looking at it right. It's more about looking at it from week to week. And of course, over the course of the whole month as well, over the course of the whole training camp. And if you look at it from that perspective, right, you're seeing that there's an improvement in process. Now, I have not been there every day. Today's the only day I was there, but from, previous reports, what I've heard, and in terms of, some clips that you get to see and some things that you're hearing from the Bears coaches as well, that process is improving, that he's able to operate at better speed. Actually, I believe Declan Doyle actually was on record today saying exactly that his process is getting better and better. Unfortunately, though, I mean, as for every good that there is, again, there's still some bad. And some of it's just being on the same page. So, for example, sitting in the end zone view, just a comment here. Chris Mack, should we start hating on the Steelers? I don't know if we start hating on the Steelers. I mean, I think the Steelers hate on themselves enough. They're stuck in this ridiculous void of good enough to make a playoff, but not bad enough to be in good draft position. I'm just also going to, till the day I die, be an Aaron Rodgers hater. It just is what it is. I mean, the NFL is better if Aaron's good, but he's just not that guy anymore. So I don't know that I'll actively root for Steelers losses, but I probably will actively root for Aaron just to not look good. And I guess, unfortunately, the two kind of come together. But thanks, Chris, for that comment. So anyway, back to that play. There's two plays very similar. It was Rome coming up the left sideline, coming into the end zone, and Caleb puts the ball to the front pylon, and Rome is turned the other way. Now that's just a communication thing, right? I mean, to me, at least from my, again, fan point of view and the split second play, Caleb put the ball in the right spot. That would make sense, right? The defensive back is more on the inside shade on Rome, and Rome needs to turn outside and to get that ball. And that happened twice. So that's two touchdown opportunities that they missed just because it seems like Caleb and Rome weren't on the same page. One other layer to that I think Caleb can still improve on, and this was talked about at the beginning of training, really of OTAs, was the hands up stuff, right? When things get frustrating, I think it's easy for a lot of, I know I'm terrible at this if I'm playing pickup basketball and there's one person that comes down the court, dribbles and just shoots it right away and breaks a three. And it's just, you put like, what the hell, dude? Like, can you at least pass the ball one time? You've chucked it up the last three possessions. But when you're in a professional football team and you're the leader of that team, right? I mean, you can't have those hands up moments. There's a difference between trying to be a leader and fiery, and you can be upset. We all have emotions, but so for example, after these two plays, you can kind of see Caleb throw the arms up, like Rome. That wasn't where I expected you to be on those two plays. So, that stuff like that's happening. And then you also have, like for example, to end the practice, Caleb tried throwing into a tight window, and Nashawn Wright picked him off, and that was the end of practice. The exact situation. Did I write that down? No, I didn't write that down, but because it's for a couple of 11-11s, it's a little less situational. It's kind of like, hey, we're just going from the 5. Hey, we're going from the 10. But the very last session was more, hey, we're actually trying to score. It's 1st and 10. Let's march down the field. But I didn't write down exactly what the down and distance was there. But that's a rough way for an up and down practice to wrap it up, right? You don't want to end on an interception. Now, that being said, you're trying to look at this through a relatively positive lens as well, where you do have a question mark when it comes to Jalen Johnson because, is he ready for week one? I mean, as far as I'm hearing, I think he should be, but you take that question mark a step further, and who is your cornerback two? I know there's a lot of Bears fans that are fairly anti Tyreek Stevenson, for some of the shenanigans from last year and some of the up and down play he's had. But if anything, this is the defense you also want Tyreek Stevenson playing in. He is an aggressive corner. He's a press corner. He's a man corner. And so playing for Dennis Allen, that is a match made in heaven. And then that being said, Nashawn Wright has ties to some of the coaching staff from a previous stop and in a variety of ways. If you can have a true competition between Nashawn and Tyreek, that's fantastic. If Terrell Smith is still in there, he's still, he's been unfortunately hurt, so he just has not necessarily been true, really had a chance to show what he can do on the field consistently. But he was out there today totally fine. Actually had a couple good pass breakups in some one of the one-on-ones. You wanted having a bunch of corners is not a problem. I know even some people can go as far as obviously the Michael Parsons news drop that he's requesting a trade. We all know Matt Eberflus is the defensive coordinator over in Dallas land. Is there a world where the Bears can pull off a 2018 Khalil Mack trade 2.0? I know, and some people at some organization groups have floated out the idea of including players as a part of that to lessen the capital blow that might be going out instead of it being multiple firsts in that way. And I know Jalen Johnson's name was brought up in that. Now, I don't know exactly what a trade like that would look like. It would cost you for sure. Plus, obviously, you have to pay the guy too. You'd like to stay whole at edge. You don't want to just slightly upgrade there. So if you could try to figure out a way to keep Sweat and Parsons, that's where you would want to live. And in this too high safety world, pressure is more important than coverage. I'm going to be completely honest. So, in a world that you could justify moving Jalen Johnson, for example, one that helps with money, and two, maybe like lessening that blow of draft capital. Can you do that because you're confident in, hey, we have Nashawn Wright and Tyreek, who are now our two corners. We have Terrell Smith as our backup. But you have to be confident in that. And that's a whole other thing. That's a conversation for another day. But yeah, so like I would say in these last few practices, it does feel like, from what I've seen from other reports and things like that, it feels like Caleb and the offense are getting more and more comfortable, which you weren't really seeing that at all last year, for an example. So that's a huge step. And we're still operating in the thought process that, like, again, Dennis Allen brings pressure, and probably some of them, not the most pressure, but in a higher percentage than some of the other teams you'll face. So, and take today, right? Darnell Wright struggled a little bit. You rotated out your right guard today. With that, all that being said, if you can operate, basically try and drink from a water hose with all this stuff coming at you, whether it's the different plays, whether it's the pressure packages, trying to create situations to actually make Caleb very uncomfortable, then hopefully when you're getting to the actual season where you're selecting, okay, instead of the 100% of stuff that we were working on in training camp, we're going to work with the 70% that we know we're the most confident in, and we'll start to sprinkle the other things as the season progresses. But also, again, that you're playing a team that's not going to play with the Dennis Allen as intensity or blitz packages, right? I mean, you may not see something like that necessarily until the Flores Vikings games, since he's a madman as a defensive coordinator. You may not necessarily, have the Montez Sweat coming at you. I mean, you're going to be playing some good people. Don't get me wrong, but I still think we're really highly of Montez Sweat, even if other people don't. Yeah, that's what we'll have for the show today. Just want to give you guys a general idea, the temperature of the room, we could say, as what that practice looks like. I mean, if I could leave it at one thing, I mean, I'd say I feel better watching it myself. I think listening or hearing and reading some of the commentary leading up to this, I was a little worried, like, is Caleb getting it? But seeing it myself, you can see that he is. The processing is getting better. The timing is getting better. You can see why he's as uncomfortable as he is in the pocket at times and why some of these incompletions or even interceptions are happening. I like the idea right now of trying to challenge the defense and maybe leading to those interceptions in practice, because you don't know what you can get away with until you try it. And last year, I mean, one of the reasons I believe that the deep ball percentage was as low as it was because Caleb was worried about turning the ball over. I mean, Matt Eberflus's whole thing was protect the football, do not turn the ball over. And on a deep ball, it's at best, usually a 50-50 ball. One of the ways to make it not 50-50 and make it more in your favor is to probably put a little more air on it and overthrow, right? And so I like the idea of him trying to challenge that a bit more. There was not a lot of deep ball work in this practice. It was very red zone heavy. Defense is the defense. They're getting some pressure, which is nice. You're seeing some interesting stuff from the line. It's hard from the vantage point that I was into. So, because again, I was in the end zone, so you're just watching from behind the D at a slightly different angle to see exactly what's going on there from the defensive line play, like what the stunts look like and everything like that. You get much more idea of the secondary view. But guys Brisker was flying around. That was very exciting. He's clearly still a leader on that defense, and the team feeds off of that. Seeing again Deshaun Wright make that interception was great. But at the same time, you are seeing guys like Luther Burden and Colston Loveland make plays. DJ Moore had a touchdown during one of the 11-on-11s in the back of the end zone. Cole Kmet already mentioned his touchdown, but he's still involved there and probably a little bit more of a natural fit in terms of the routes he now is being asked to run compared to last year when he had to run all of the tight end routes. And again, in a system that was terrible. I mean, the Shane Waldron system was trash. It was like a fever dream of why is this receiver running that route and why is that tight end doing this? It just never made sense. Overall, I feel a lot better coming out of that practice than I did going into it in terms of what I thought I would see. It'll be very interesting, right? We're very close. A week from tomorrow is the first preseason game. Now it'll be vanilla. I know specifically what was the first game preseason game last year. We saw that DeAndre Swift screen for a touchdown, and everyone was super excited about it. I was super excited about it. And then we get to the regular season and realize the Bears couldn't move the football. So there's only so much we can take from these preseason games, but at least we'll have an idea of what that'll look like. I think even looking back, you could tell a little bit. I mean, there wasn't really a lot of explosive stuff down the field in any of the Bears preseason games, and that translated to the regular season. So we'll take it for what it is. It's a grain of salt. Antonio Esparza, are you going to every practice? No, I wish I could. Both my regular job, right, as a physical therapist gets in the way. Darn that. But also it's just crazy annoying to get the tickets. So they only had 3 total weekend practices. They're 2 Saturdays and then the Family Fest this Sunday. So those are the main ones I can go to. But I'll do but in the future, hopefully I can do more in future training camps. Just kind of depends on the schedule all shakes out. But that's all I got for the day, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed this little tidbit. Look forward. We're going to have some preview shows for Bare Bones as the preseason gets kind of full into swing here. We're going to have a couple of other people pop on and help out. And then, of course, during the regular season, we will also have our traditional Thursday previews where Danny, Meehan, and myself go through the matchups and talk about what we are looking forward to in that game. Bear down, everybody.
Hey, what has 2 thumbs and hates Todd Packer? This guy.